Hello, and for today's content I'll be talking about the new class match map and some of the units for the viability, since the map will be coming in starting January 20th after the maintenance is over during the allotted times that the matches are available. As I stated before, as of January 20th after the maintenance, the new class match map will change to the Snowy Mountains. It is currently the current arena map we have right now, but with the new and different map effects. As the usual, there's always a cost limit, and this cost limit is going to be 540, which is higher than the 500 cost we had last class match. So while it is important to note that it is higher, you still have to watch your costs. With that, the new map effects consists of quicken not working, so there's no more quicken strats available in this map. There's no CT up down stuff like steal time or stop, and quicken itself, that's what it is basically, but I'm not 100% sure if haste works or not. I would have to test it when I actually get the time, because haste, it doesn't directly touch the CT gauge, it touches the CT growth itself, like per turn, which is a bit different than how like quicken and stop work. So yeah, it would need some testing to be 100% confirmed on that. If haste does work, that would be definitely something to consider, but for now I'm going with the assumption it doesn't until I can test it out. Anyways, moving on. Since healing power is also down by 50%, this means that the casted and received healing will be reduced by 50% each. You can treat this as almost 75% reduced healing, because the reason why it's done like this, someone did the math on it on the Reddit. It made sense because healing power affects it both on casting and receiving. So you can treat it as like, if you're at a base 100 default healing power, 50% of that is now 50. So your healing power is 50. So if you're gonna cast it onto someone else that also has reduced healing power at 50, that means your 50 current healing power 50 is now being used to heal another person with their current healing power down 50, which is basically making it almost like 25, because 25% or like 25, because 50% of 100 is 50, and then 50% of 50 again is 25. So it's like you're significantly reducing the healing power. So that means sustained comps will have a very hard time to out heal any significant damage. Alright, so before I go any further, all the information and thoughts here on this list is from my own perspective and experience, so take it with like a grain of salt or try to understand my reasoning. Season 1 class match, I ended around like placement 100-ish, and then the second season I landed around rank 50, the low 50s, like almost, no, not low 50s, like high 50s, almost 60, and that was without using Agrius or any quicken type of comp, because I did not have any of those available. So I think I have a decent understanding of it in my opinion, but yes, take it only like with a grain of salt from whatever I say here. And lastly, before I go into any explanations and such, I didn't include any water units here, as like I just said, the nature of class match around this time still favors Frederica and Niv Lu existing because of their long range. No other current water units will be able to take like damage from both of them, like they will just get instantly deleted. So continuing on, since there is a very large amount of units to use, both to talk about and to like explain, I didn't want to get into like another 30-minute video duration, like if possible, so I'll only talk about the tier 1 unit considerations and some tier 2 that I just put on the list because they do come to mind when you're thinking about class match. So for the long range and class match standard, the map being Snowy Mountains and range attacks having relevancy here because far range and it's much safer to hit, it is Frederica and Niv Lu. Unfortunately, I have to say this, because Niv Lu is out for longer than a week now, you can expect her much more often, and she'll be strong enough and serviceable to compete in a class match as well. So she not only has 2 jump, but she also shares Frederica's range. The chaining of these two, if they're put together, can be very disastrous and quickly wipe out a team if they're not correctly mitigated against. I purposely didn't add in Alim or who is it, Sakura, because for a week's time, not only do they need Esper resonance, JP, and like no, mostly, yeah, JP, Esper Resonance, and like shards to even build them up like decently. Unless you're like Omega Super Whale, like I do not expect to see her in this class match unless it's maybe like the last day or 2 or 3. But for now, you do. I would argue that she does not exist for now. And I only say that because usually day 1, like whales or like people who have the unit is not gonna max her out on everything in one day. Maybe you could if you did push the limits for it and like skip ticket everything, but like there's still equipment proficiency and all that, so like I won't get too much into that, but yeah, that's why Sakura is not on this list currently. Anyways, moving on to the terrain usage units. What I mean by this is like how good their mobility and their missile resistance is. Obviously Xmas Meshery's resistance for missiles is not good, however she does have access to her own missiles, but it's also her mobility. That's why I put her into tier 2. She would have to work around a build somehow though to make sure she doesn't instantly die from like gunners, but yeah. Victora and Kane, however, they can not only both boost their missile resistance or have good enough resistance to it already. It gives them a significantly better chance of surviving from gunners, and since this map favors specifically 2 to 3 jump for mobility to cross through the middle, both Kane and Victor have very good uses here. Also, since this map has no more accuracy up compared to like the Guild War version of the map, this means that the evasion compositions can come back really strong. What this means is that Ruin's Stern has a very high evasion rate along with Venera, so you could see these two as a staple in most of the evasion compositions, but the reason why I put Venera higher than Lastwell, even though Lastwell does have the Mirage, is because of the map layout. Venera not only can like traverse through the middle, she can also have like move 5, so she can literally move around the map very easily. So that's why I put her in like tier 1. I will have to say though, you have to be careful because if she does go in alone by herself and there's no follow-up and she just dies like without doing anything, then you are heavily at a disadvantage. You just have to use her very carefully. I would consider Lastwell being in a tier 1 as well, because if you have someone basically illusion him and then he goes the Dragoon sub, he can have Dragon Standard, so he has move 4 and then jump 2, which would put him above Ruin's Stern basically. But you get the point what I'm saying. Like evasion, it depends on your build overall, but that's what I put there for now. So for tanks, the red circle for Dwayne is there purposely to indicate that he is a double cost unit. Because this is class match, cost effectiveness is very important because you have to fit that bar of 540 cost for this map specifically. Regardless, since Dwayne can choose between multiple passives that can boost his mobility, such as either like move +1 or jump +1, or like his missile resistance or even more defense, with his like flexibility and like beefy like build, if he wanted to, he can do this job just fine. And then his Dark Mantle buff, which further boosts his defense by up to a max of 15, is very helpful against like teams that cannot lower his defense effectively. Also, Agris is also another tier 1. She's still here because it's relevant of her limit break for Confusion having such a long range and how effective it is. Along with that, she can use Saintly Wall to help mitigate damage taken here while she's moving up, and she's very, very fast for a tank, especially compared to all the other tanks. Her agility is very high. Keep in mind though, if the enemy does not have a barrier breaker like Niv Lu, or you can't melt it fast enough, like for Agris' Saintly Wall barrier, that means her barrier will be super effective. Like she will be very hard to down. Like a Luartha or like Lucia can quad shot it and just break it instantly. Luartha can probably kill Agris very, very fast too. But as I said before, if you do not have like a tools to like break her barrier against physical attackers in general, she'll be very, very tanky there. Not gonna talk about Warrior Light and Killfeet because they have their quirks. I used Killfeet as well, but it's just there for showing basically. Lastly, before we go on to the next slide, I want to talk about 3 quick units, which are Mont, Shell, and Grace. I put Mont here only because he has 4 move and 2 jump for the map's mobility. He is only there though, however, for the matchup against Frederica and Niv Lu because he has the elemental advantage of being Earth. He does have -10 default missile resistance, but he also has good defense, and he has a good matchup against those two. But if someone brought in like a Lucia or like Halloween Leela, he will pretty much be deleted. but that's why I think it's honorable to put him there because of his advantages, and he's cost effective as an MR unit. For Shell and Grace, the reason why I put an X on them is because quicken strats do not work here, period. Meaning Shell is pretty relevant because she was known for mostly her time mage shenanigans with quicken. It was very helpful in the last class matches, which is very annoying to play against, but she cannot be used here very well. Similar to the quicken cheese, sustain strats with like having like 2 tanks and then a healer, Grace does not work as a healer because the healing power is reduced, as I said before. If you're taking like anything like decent to relevant damage, you will not be able to out heal it on this map. Once again, similar to the effective unit slide, since there's just too much to talk about for Espers and vision cards, I'll talk about the categories instead. Just in case I might have like missed an Esper or vision card, it'll help you if you're listening to this like think about why I put it there. Basically the purpose or general idea from my perspective. So to begin with, I put the missile resistance category. Since Frederica and Niv Lu can deal lots of damage together at very far range, especially in class match because chip damage is very relevant, being able to like survive their combo and chain is something heavily to consider, which is like missile resistance because it fits that build like perfectly for consistency. Moving on to the missile DPS, making sure to boost the missile damage for as much chip damage possible is also important to consider to quickly down enemies that are not mitigating against it. Sorry. Because if you do not have enough missile DPS and the enemy does have missile resist and you just went for a more defensive build for gunners or missile attackers, you will not do anything close to enough damage. So like if you had a +1 and 2 missile attackers, your +1 has to pull a lot of weight in trying to help there. Also similar for the missile resistance for specifically Frederica and Niv Lu. For the lightning resistance and killers, missile resistance is not actually the only way to go to mitigate damage from those 2 specific missile attackers. Like the lightning resistance builds here from Ochu and Titan definitely can wall off Rika and Niv Lu from not only the Espers resistance to that element, but as well as their additional panels for lightning resist. You have to keep in mind, however, because gunners like Lucia, Mystario, Luartha and such all exist, they are not affected by any of the lightning resistance builds here. There is no mitigation there, meaning they can pretty much get deleted if you were banking on only the lightning resistance, but it's something to consider. Also, since the vision meta can be used in this class match specifically, accuracy, luck, and vision cards can be very effective here, and it can force the opponents to either bring guaranteed hits like sharpshoot from Frederica or have very high accuracy with like using Blades of Grass, a luck vision card, and such. Luckily for people that are going to use evasion builds, Niv Lu does not have sharpshoot, so Frederica and her +1 on her team, if you didn't go like all gunners or something, would have to pick up the slack on that part with their sharpshoot. But like I said, if you go evasion and maybe like missile resistance, Frederica alone is not going to be able to down them all. For the flex vision cards, there's a much larger variety now, with the party human killer for both physical and magical damage, or even the resistances for single or area of effect targets. They're called a flex for a reason, that's why I put it here. Some of them have both offensive and defensive bonuses, but for now this is what I will call them, like flex cards. There's also certain things like Leona's Castle and such, but I didn't place it there just because I'm trying to show like the more UR/MR costs that have the benefits that I'm talking about, basically. And lastly, but not the least in possibilities of vision cards, is the last category of agility up vision cards. The reason why these vision cards are very important is that if you're able to outpace your opponents in both turn order and like basically attacks, and like you can be able to like chain it correctly, like your attacks, it will heavily like sway the favor to your team to winning. So that's why currently the only ones that we have is going to be House of Beolov and the beloved Psychic Chocobo. The Black Rose one vision card is maybe coming next week when class match is going to be over, so it's going to be too late. There are certain ones like Secret Orders, like Catone's vision card, but specifically this is for like party agility and being the main or highest amounts for party. Like I said, there's also always other vision cards to use, such as like the Leonis Castle one or the Cactar one, but this is what I chose to focus on for now for categories, so I hope you understand that. And once again, we arrived to the end of the video. As always, if you like my presentation for the class match map change, please leave a like and or subscribe, and until the next video, have fun doing class matches. Peace out.